Well, Happy New Year, everybody. Can you believe it's 2022? I just cannot believe that 2021 went by so quickly. I mean, sometimes it seemed as we had our COVID resurgence that it wasn't moving too quickly, but when it was Christmas and everybody was over, I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe it's December already. I hope everybody had a great Christmas, and if you celebrate Hanukkah or another holiday, I hope you had an awesome time making memories with family and friends. New Year's, I actually did stay up till midnight and watch the fireworks on TV on our local channel. They had them at Reunion Towers, which is a tall building in downtown Dallas. And I tell you, these fireworks went on for like 10 minutes and they were gorgeous. The building was lit up and everything. So I hope you guys all either had a fun time or you were just home, maybe popping popcorn and eating chocolate. Maybe a little champagne, nothing wrong with that. Well, I've got a great card to show you tonight. You know, tomorrow starts the ordering period for our new January to June mini catalog and celebration. And the bundle I'm going to be showing you tonight is called Sweet Conversations. And I'm also going to be featuring lots of projects on my blog and Facebook over the next few weeks, and probably next week on live too. So let me flip the camera around and we will get rolling. All right, and hopefully we won't make you seasick here. All righty. And feel free as we're going along here, if you have questions or comments, just go ahead and leave them in the comments and I'll try to answer those as we go along. Hello, Miss Carol. I'm glad you're with us here. Hopefully my North Carolina friends are popping in as well. So here is the card that we are going to be making tonight. I don't know if you can tell just by looking at it, but it is a 5 by 5 inch square on the card. And actually opening it up, of course, it is going to be 10 by 5, so that when you score it, it'll be 5 by 5. So here is the piece of cardstock that I'm starting with, and I'm just going to fold that, give it a good crease. Now, my next layer is going to be 4 3/4 by 4 3/4, but we need to do a little stamping on this layer. Here is the Sweet Conversations stamp set, and these are the dies that go along with it. There's lots of different hearts, some banners, this little tag. It's really a great stamp set. So what I'm going to use is this stamp right here. It's actually this one, so we're going to have outline of hearts. And what I'm going to do is get my Real Red stamp pad, and then I am just going to start inking hearts all over this. And what I like to do is, if I can get it here, rotate my paper as I'm stamping, because that allows it to actually be a little more random looking when we're done. Now, you'll notice I am not stamping the inside of this paper, and the reason is because when I put my next layer on, you are not going to see the middle. So why take a bunch of time doing that? So now I've got my hearts all over there, and I see that I might want to just add a couple little more here to just kind of round it out. And what's really fun about this is there is no rhyme or reason. You can just do your stamping around the outside to be how you want it to be. And we're going to set these pieces aside because we need to do our white piece now. So hopefully this looks pretty even to you. And I'm going to show you how I did that. So what I did is I took my paper trimmer, which, let me bring that in here. All right. So this, like I told you, is 4 by 4. So, and I've got a little smudge here, but you know what? We're just going to roll ahead. I was working on another project before we started. So I figured out by just trial and error that I wanted to go a little bit to the left here at about 1 3/8. And then what I did is I took my scoring blade and I just came down and scored. Then I turned it around and I did the exact same thing on this side. Now, of course, if you wanted to just move your paper over, you could do that. But I found it easier to actually flip the paper around. And just like a tic-tac-toe board, we needed to do the same thing here, right? To give us our tic-tac-toe pattern. And let me just get it in here so I've got the right one. And then, I don't know if you can see it, but now I've got my score lines down here and this way. And the reason we're doing that, you'll see when I bring in my ribbon. Now, I am using this gingham ribbon, which I'm so excited. This is on the carryover list for the June to December catalog. And I've got about 4 spools of this, so I was very happy to find that it was still on the list. So now this square is 4 by 4. So when I cut my ribbon, I cut it at about 5 inches, so I would have enough to roll over on this side. So now I'm just going to line up that ribbon with the score lines that I made. And you can either come in with your adhesive, or you can use Scotch tape on the back. I've got my adhesive, so that's what I'm going to use right now. Okay? And actually, I'm going to pop over and get my tape. It'll be a little quicker as I'm showing you. Okay, so here's the back, and we're just going to pop that Scotch tape on. Now, I've got another piece of my ribbon here, and I need to tape this back here. Sometimes when you use adhesive on the back and you have, other things to put, it doesn't stay down like you want it to. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and use my tape. All right, so let's just get my fingers here. And I saw a demonstrator, I think she was in Australia, that did a card like this, but she did it with lines, stamping the black ink. And that was a cool idea, but I thought, hey, I love this ribbon, so why not try it with ribbon? And it worked out. So now, once I figured out that I needed 5 inches, I just took the first one and then I left the ribbon on the spool and then I just cut it rather than measuring it out every time. That's another little time-saving trick. Okay, now I've got my score line this way. So we're going to do the same thing. I don't know about you, but I love using ribbon on cards. And I also love using buttons. And I'm going to show you a little bit later how we're going to use a button on this card. I did a class last year, and it was called Kitchen Sink Stamping. And guys, that was such a fun and popular class to do. And the whole premise of kitchen sink stamping is that you can use everything but the kitchen sink when you're creating your cards. So I am challenging myself this year to use things that you might not ordinarily think to use in your card making. And before we end tonight, I'm going to show you one of those. Okay, now here I have my little grid. So now we need to get our stamps. And we're going to use the X like you would have in tic-tac-toe, but instead of the O, we're going to use a heart because it's Valentine's Day, right? So let me pop my X on here on my block. Then I'm going to use the memento pad. So I'm going to ink it up. And what I did, let me show you that. I wanted 3 hearts across the middle. So I just took a pencil, and I did my heart, 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 and then I just started putting the other ones in there so I wouldn't have any more rows that made a tic-tac-toe. So there's no other way that you could do the tic-tac-toe except my hearts. All right, so now we're just going to stamp this X to make sure it inked up the way I wanted it, and it did. So now we're going to stamp right here in that square, and then we're going to come over, and since this is a photopolymer stamp, I have my piercing mat under my scrap paper to make sure I get a crisp image. All right, so we're going to do this one here and one more here. All right, now I want my heart. So I'm going to, let's close up that memento so I don't accidentally stamp black hearts. That would not be very attractive, would it? Again, I'm going to try, make sure I've got it inked up well. And then I'm just going to start stamping it right here in the middle. And actually, I'm going to stamp right here too. But you're going to see something fun I'm going to do instead of just having my hearts that I stamped. What do you think so far? Is it starting to be kind of fun? All right, so I decided that I wanted a little more layering on this card. So I took the die cut to match the stamp set, and I cut out 3 hearts, and I wanted them to pop up. So I got a dimensional. You could use the regular size, or of course you could use the little mini ones. Which ones do you guys like to use? I, like using any size dimensional that I can. I love dimensionals. Do you guys like using them? All right, I want that to be in the center a little bit more. There we go. Okay, grabbing the other one right here. Okie dokie. And then I've got this one right here. And you notice I got a little ink right here. What I'm going to do later is take this cool little sand eraser, and I'm just going to erase that off. You just get this at Michael's or somewhere, and it works great. Okay, now let's stick this aside for a second, and I'm going to show you how I did this. Now, I did not have black embossing powder. For some reason, when I was ordering my embossing stuff, I neglected to get black. Well, I am going to show you the coolest trick if you don't have black embossing powder, which you can do. Okie dokie. So, we're going to take our Happy Valentine's Day stamp right here, and then I've got a piece of vellum, and I've got my crystal clear embossing powder. So, what I'm going to do is I am going to ink up my stamp here really well with my memento, and then I'm going to stamp right here on my vellum. And I'm going to hold it there for a minute because I want to make sure that the ink transfers. Then I'm going to take this vellum and I'm going to quickly put it into my clear embossing powder. Now, I'm going to take my heat tool I've got right here, and I'm going to plug it in. Okay, technology here. Let's get that plugged right in. And now we're going to heat this up. And we're going to just give it a minute. When you're heating up vellum especially, you want to make sure that you do it very quickly so you don't burn your vellum. Okay. Isn't that cool? Now it's all embossed and ready to go, and let me show you what I did next. This is our messages die that goes with our messages stamp set. So what I did is I took this one right here, this banner right here. I'm going to pop over to my embossing machine and I'm going to cut it out. I should have the Jeopardy song in the background while I'm doing this, huh? Do, 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 do. Alrighty. And here we go. Looky there. Now I've got my banner piece. So I'm going to come back now and let's put this card together. I'm going to use my seal, if I can advance it here and get it to cooperate. There we go. Usually it just goes right along. Sometimes it doesn't cooperate, but usually that is if I'm pushing too hard, because remember when we had the snail, you did kind of have to push hard, and old habits die hard. So I have to make sure you just barely touch it here, and then it doesn't stick. And I just love this adhesive because truly, I think it sticks better than snail. All right, so we've got this down here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a glue dot. You know, you kind of do have to pay attention when you're using adhesive on vellum because it will show through. But I'm going to kind of hide this little glue dot right behind this little H. And when I put it down here, you really won't be able to see it. And then over here, it's not going to matter, and I'll show you why in just a second. All right, so I've got that down there. Okay, you with me? Okay, now I have, as if you've been stamping with me for a while, I have just a bazillion buttons. So I picked a couple out here. I'm going to try this one and see if it will work because I just think it's a cool button. So I'm going to take my black baker's twine and let me just get my little loop here going. There we go. Now I want to pull on my tails because I don't want that bow to be quite that large. So we will just pull that. And then let's cut off the tail. Okay. And we'll grab another glue dot here. Stick that on the back. Sometimes when you stick it on the twine or the linen thread, they're a little hard to pull off. And especially when I'm doing a live, then they're very hard to pull off. They just don't want to cooperate. Let's get another one here and see if it will do a little bit better. Do you guys ever have that problem? There we go. Came right off. And then I'm going to stick it right here, and it's going to cover up that other glue dot. And I'm going to take several glue dots here and pile them on top of this button because I want to use this button on my card. And it's got a little bit of a thicker bottom on it, so I'm going to use a couple here to make sure that it sticks on there like I want it to. Okay, so then we'll stick it right here on top of my bow, and there it is. Now, if you were mailing this card, I would probably use a flat button, but if you're gonna give it to your husband or maybe someone else that lives in your household, you could use a 3D button like this. Oops. And it's I'll probably have to stick a few more little glue dots on that to get it to stick where I want. But there we go. And then you just would put a white layer that is the same size as the red layer, which was 4 3/4 by 4 3/4. And you could either stamp the heart, or if you wanted to put more, like a big heart, and then maybe, whoops, that little guy turned over, a heart like that, or maybe you wanted to put these in there instead of this. This bundle gives you so many options. And I am going to have a PDF on my blog on Thursday that you can download, and it will give you all the measurements and instructions to make this card. Now, let me show you. I'm going to get my embossing powder lid back on here. So, I was telling you kitchen sink stamping. All right, so let me bring this in and show you. So, I got a card from a friend of mine, and it actually looked like this. Okay, this was the outside, and then she wrote a message to me on the inside. Well, I thought, oh my goodness, this is Valentine's Day. It just screamed to me Valentine's Day. So I've got a piece of 8.5 by 5.5 real red cardstock, scored it at 4 1/4. I trimmed this down because I wanted a little bit of the red border. Now, those hearts I just showed you, what I'm going to do is actually add a heart right under that little sentiment. I'm going to just stick it right here. And then I'm going to get a dimensional, and I'm actually going to take a heart here, and then I'm going to grab this little teeny one that I showed you and get a glue dot. You could also use a mini dimensional, but I just wanted to stick it like this. Then I'm going to get my adhesive. And the reason, again, that I call this kitchen sink stamping is you're just using either leftovers, or I have a big basket and I call it my kitchen sink basket of crafting supplies. And I have got all sorts of stuff in there. I've got maps, I've got a hymnal, I've got buttons, I've got magazines, I've got matchbook covers. I just have all sorts of things, and I take my Stampin' Up cardstock and stamp sets and everything, and I kind of marry the two. So what do you think? Isn't that a cute card here? And then, of course, I'll just put a layer on the inside here. And voila! Let me show you a couple of the other samples that you will be seeing on my blog and Facebook coming up. It's the same card right here. This just says, "You're absolutely amazing. Hello." And this one is wishing you the happiest of birthdays. So even though it is paper that goes with a Valentine suite, it doesn't have to be for Valentine's Day. And then this one right here, Carol, you will especially love this one because we are going to do this at Stamp Club later this month. Well, guys, remember, I have one more. You might have seen this before. I think I showed it at the end of last year. It's a little gift card holder. You could put money in here too if you give, like grandkids or kids gift cards for Valentine's Day. So remember, tomorrow starts our January to June mini catalog and celebration, where when you spend $50 or $100, you get to choose free stuff. And if you decide, hey, I kind of like what you do, Anne, I might like to be a demonstrator, either just get a discount on my projects, maybe start a business. In addition to the regular starter kit, you get to pick 2 free stamp sets of any value in our annual catalog or the mini catalog. So that's just something to keep in mind. So if you do want to shop tomorrow, you can go to my Stampin' Up website, which is annbrown.stampinup.net. And you can also visit my blog at stampmaven.com, see all the projects I'm going to be posting. And if you don't get my weekly newsletter, one is coming out tomorrow, first one of the new year. And there's a little box in the upper right-hand corner here on my website, and you can just put in your name and email and you'll start getting my weekly newsletters. I have all sorts of fun stuff, and I even have a little contest in this month's. So thanks for joining in, guys, and I will see y'all next Monday, if not before.